Hello everyone! Welcome back. I hope you're gonna enjoy this video as much as I'm gonna enjoy making it. In this video, we'll be doing something really exciting. Per usual, I'm gonna talk you through all of the books on my physical TBR. I don't have all of the books with me, so some of them I'll just show a picture, but most of them I have with me right now because most of my physical TBR is at my mom's and I'm at my mom's. So that is basically what we'll be doing today. I am really excited, as I've already mentioned. I hope you are too. Let's get into it. So the first ones that I'm going to talk about are the ones that I don't have, so we can get that out of the way. First one being Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I started this book. I got up to page, I think like 70, 60 maybe, and I stopped reading because I was not really enjoying it. The writing style was just not for me. It was not making me happy reading it. I wasn't into it, so I decided to put it down for the time being, and that was around the Christmas time. Now it's almost Christmas time again. I'm gonna have to try to pick this up again, but I don't know when that will be, but I'll try again. But that's basically Divine Rival. The Ashes and the Starkest King by Carissa Broadbent. I know it's really bad. I also started this, hey, but I got like 2/3 of the way through, I think, and I just stopped reading because I was in this huge, ginormous reading slump and I wasn't feeling a high fantasy. So I decided to put it down, pick up a light, fluffy romance, pick this up another time. Guess what? We didn't pick it up another time because I know that when I put down a book for any amount of time, I'm not gonna pick it up again probably. I do want to read this again, but I'll have to start at the beginning, but that's my fault. So I'm gonna do that, but I don't know when that will be. The Woman in the Window, I don't know what the author is, but again, there's something on the screen. I have no idea what this is about, but I bought it at a thrift store and I went like, I know this book, but I don't know what it's about. But basically it's about a woman in the window. For the rest, no, don't know anything. But I think this could be a good thriller because it is a thriller. I think it could be a fun time, a fun spooky, not scary, but like a thrilling time. Bitterthorn, again by an author, Kat Dune, I think. This is not a very popular author, and I bought this book on a whim when I went to the bookstore and I heard some people talking about it. They were like, oh, this is sapphic. Oh, this is witchy. And I went like, buy immediately. Those people didn't buy that book, but I did. But I still haven't read it, and it's been on my TBR for more than a year. But I do want to get to it. To Wear a Fey Crown and to Spark a Fey War by Tessania Odette. This is the author that wrote Curse of the Wolf King. Basically like fairy tale retellings, and I like those. And I read the first book in this little trilogy and I didn't really enjoy that. I didn't really like the main character in the book. Now I have to read the two others, but I think I may unhaul that book because it's like 3 books in one book. I may unhaul that book, but we'll see. Outlander! Yeah, I really enjoyed the show. I haven't finished watching it. I'm now on season 4. So the book I started as well, but the writing style was just not for me. So I do want to pick this up again and read it in little chunks of it, because I think if I read too much at once, I would not remember any of the details that I read about. But I do want to try again and read like 100 pages, and then the week after 100 pages again until I have finished the book. Land of the Living by Nikki French. I heard my mom talking about this book. This was the first book that my mom ever recommended to me, and maybe not the smartest recommendation for someone who was 10 years old, but I saw it at the thrift store in English, so I wanted to pick it up. Picked it up and never read it. But my mom says it's a really good book, so I need to read it, but I don't know when that time will come, but it will come, most likely, probably. I hope so. Part of Your World and a Whole New World, all by Liz Braswell, I think is the name. These are just kind of twisted Disney tale retellings, I think, where the villain is the main character. I thought that was the plot of it. But these are, I think, middle grade books, so there's no smut, no spice, obviously. It's also a little younger than YA, but I think these could be like a fun palate cleanser kind of read. And then the last one that I don't have with me right now is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I have spoken so much about this book on this channel and I still haven't read it. I put it on so many TBRs and again, still haven't read it. But I do want to read this, but I don't know when that time will come. Again, I don't know when that will be, but I do know that I want to read it. But maybe when I'm a little bit older, because now I'm old enough to understand it, but I think I would appreciate it more if I'm a little older. So maybe I'll save it for a time when I am really excited about it, because I think if I jump into it now, I wouldn't enjoy it because of the fact that I'm dreading to pick it up. Those were all the books that I wanted to talk about that I don't have with me physically. Now we're moving on to my TBR card, because this is a TBR card. These books are stacked on top of it, so we're gonna start with these. So this is the Happy Ever After playlist and Life's Too Short, both by Abby Jimenez. I really enjoyed most of Abby Jimenez's book. The first one in the series I didn't completely fall in love with, but I am really excited for this book specifically because I do know who it's gonna follow, and I'm just excited about that. I don't know who this book will be about, but again, it's Abby Jimenez. I think since it's not the first book that she ever wrote, I think I'm gonna enjoy these more than the other one that I read. Unravel Me by Becca Mack. I read the first 2 books quite recently. I think the first one I read in January. Oh my god, that's not recently. I read the second book in a reading vlog where I finished series that I was in the middle of, and I need to read this book as well. But the second book kind of disappointed me, so now I'm dreading picking this up. These are just fun, silly romances. The Hardest Fall, Charlie Loving Cliches, and Marriage for One, all by Ella Mays. The first one that I bought was actually Marriage for One, and I needed to have the entire... This is not a series, but I need to have the entire collection of Ella Mays books. The Gilded Cage by Lynette Noni. Honestly, I should read The Prison Healer because that's the first book in this series, and I have read that before, but it has been so long that I don't remember anything besides the plot twist at the end, and that is why this book has been on my TBR for so long. I don't know where I will stack these books. Maybe I'll need to put them on the ground because it's about to get a lot. This is a really heavy book because it's thick. It's Nightfall by Penelope Douglas. This is the 4th and final book in the Devil's Night series. I liked Corrupt, the first one, better than the other books. Most of the people are raving about the 3rd book in the series, which was Damon's book, but I like that one the least of all of them. But I have heard about people enjoying this one more than the 3rd book, so I do have some hope. It's more than 700 pages. And babe, that's a whole commitment. I will have to read this book, but when? That's the question, right? Two Twisted Crimes by Rachel Gillig. This is another case of one of those, I need to read the first book again because I don't remember anything. I read One Dark Window, the first book in the series, in a day, and I haven't retained any information from that book, so I need to reread that, and then I can jump into this one. Or, if anyone has like a really detailed recap, I can watch that, but for now, the plan is to read that book again, because I don't remember anything. Because I remember that someone on YouTube was talking about this one scene that happened in One Dark Window, and I was so confused because I didn't remember that happening at all. That is a sign that I need to read that book, but I am really excited because I did enjoy One Dark Window when I read it. Bewitched by Laura Thalassa. I read Rhapsodic, and I enjoyed that just fine. I didn't love it. I do want to read this book because I've heard a lot of positive things recently. I've heard people picking this up and really enjoying it. A Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. This is the first book in a series, and I don't know what it's about, but it's a fantasy romance, and I'm here for fantasy romance. I've also heard really positive things about this one. Emily Wild's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. I got this book for my birthday, and I'm really excited to read it. The covers of these are so gorgeous. Like, look at that. That is just the most pretty thing ever. I don't know. I love it. How Does It Feel by Janine O'Reilly. I didn't read any of the descriptions, any reviews or ratings about this book. I just saw it and bought it. It's about fae. That is what I know. It's a fantasy romance, and I'm always here for a fantasy romance. Blood Mercy by Vila Roth. I don't think this has been talked about a lot. It has less than 5,000 ratings on Goodreads, and that's not a lot at all. But I saw this in someone's video, and I thought the cover looked really pretty. The Darkness Within Us by Trisha Levenseller. This is the sequel to The Shadows Between Us, my favorite book of all time. I'll literally talk about the book in every single video that I post. This is about the sister of the main character in the first book. The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I wanted to buy Babel as well. Babel, I don't know. But I decided to refrain from doing that until I read this book, and that was a good call on my part because I haven't read this book, and I've owned it for more than a year. The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. This is, oh my god, it's damaged. Look at that, it's damaged. No. This is the first book in the Mistborn trilogy, I think. This is like the beginning of a whole universe. It's a commitment. I've recently been more excited than I was before. I want to put this in like a reading fantasy for a week reading vlog. That is The Final Empire. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Why is this still on my physical TBR, you may ask? It's such a popular book. Why haven't you read it yet? I did start it. I got 130 pages into it. I started annotating it as well. Can you see that? But I honestly wasn't really enjoying it. I think it could have been because I was in a reading slump. Because I was in a reading slump, like in a mini reading slump. but it could have also been the book. But I do want to try again. I want to buddy read this one with a friend of mine. That is the plan. Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayrer. I started this book. What page am I on? I think I'm like 2/3 of the way through this. Again, I found it kind of boring, kind of bland, didn't really enjoy it, but I do want to continue this and finish this. It's also on my monthly TBR for this month. The Ever King by L.J. Andrews. The line that sold me on this book was, they stole his crown, so he stole their daughter. This was one of my recent additions to my TBR, and I'm really excited to read it. The Book of Azrael by Ember Fee Nicole. This is book 1 in a series. Again, I have a lot of first parts of series. This is a dark fantasy romance. I don't know if this is going to be like a dark romance or a dark fantasy, because those are two entirely different things. The Song of the Marked by S.M. Gaither. I didn't hear anyone talk about this except for one person, and that one person sold me. They said that they didn't enjoy the rest of the series, but they thought this book was a really, really good one. Even though the rest of the series is probably not going to be good, this one could be good. So I picked it up. A Court So Cruel and Lovely by Stasia Stark. Again, the first one in the series. I also recently bought this. I unboxed it. No, I didn't unbox it. I hauled it in my doing book stuff video. I don't know what to say about this book except I'm excited. I say that for every book that I have right here, but I am excited about this. Lady of Darkness by Melissa K. I'm not gonna pronounce that name. This is also book 1 in a series. Also hauled this in my book haul. I have read the synopsis so many times and I still can't remember what it's about, but I do know when I read the synopsis, I was interested. Vampire Academy by Rochelle Mead. A lot of people say this is really cringe, really cliche, but I love me a cringe cliche book. So I am going to read this and I hope I'm going to enjoy the fuck out of it. I don't think it's going to be like a literary masterpiece, of course, but I do think it's going to be a fun, enjoyable time. Into the Drowning Deep by Myra Graham. This is a horror, but it's about mermaids. So it's about these killer mermaids, and I heard that and immediately went, add to cart immediately. So I bought it, and it just sounds so intriguing, like killer mermaids. And I haven't read many books with mermaids in them, so I need to read some more. Flock by Kate Stewart. Oh my fucking god. This one has been on my TBR for way too long, and I keep saying I'll read this, but I still haven't read it. I guarantee you this year or next year, we're gonna read this book. Kingmakers Year 1. This one is also called The Heir. It's by Sophie Lark. It's the Kingmaker series, obviously. You are supposed to read the Brutal Birthright series before this one, but I'm not really interested in the Brutal Birthright series, so I think I just want to jump into this one immediately instead of reading a whole other series as well. These are 2 books in the same series. We have The Pucking Wrong Guy and The Pucking Wrong Date by C.R. Jane. These are both dark romances. I have no clue what these are about, but I just know I read the first book, really enjoyed that, and now I want to read the second and third book. Skin of a Sinner by Avina St. Graves. This is a childhood best friends to lovers situation, but I think it's a childhood best friends to enemies to lovers situation because he murders her whole family. Okay, slay, I guess. Literally slay, because he slayed her whole family. This is one that I'm reading currently, but I still wanted to add it to my physical TBR because technically it's still on my physical TBR. It's The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by Lori Gilmore. I am really enjoying it so far. I have not read much. I'm now on chapter 7, page 65, but I feel like I'm going into a reading slump, and I'm not happy about that, but I feel like this could have the potential to drag me out of it because I am really enjoying it. It's just like a cutesy, fun read. You With a View by Jessica Joyce. I purely bought this book because I wanted to start off with her debut book because this is her debut book, but I've heard a lot of positive things about The X-Files, which is the second book that she ever wrote. I've heard more positive things about that book than this book, but I also heard that this book is a fun, silly, goofy time. Sign me up! I have the first and the third book in the series, but I have ordered the second book, but it's arriving on Wednesday. It's now Sunday. It's Set on You by Amy Leah and The Catch by Amy Leah. The one in the middle is X's and O's, and that is about a book influencer. Oh my god, I need that. But these are 2 different covers. Look at the size difference. This is by Berkeley and this is by Penguin. That hurt me so freaking bad when I saw them arrive. I was like, no! But it happens, and I'm not gonna return them because I just don't want to return them. This is about a fitness influencer. These are all about influencers. So fitness influencer. The second one is about a book influencer, and this is, I don't know, a fashion influencer or something. This is apparently giving It Happened One Summer, and I love It Happened One Summer, so it's gonna be a fun time. Falling Hard for the Royal Guard by Megan Clausen. I don't know if I'll ever read this, but I think my mom may want me to read this book, and if she says that I should read this book, I'm gonna read this book. But for now, I'm not sure. This hasn't gotten the best reviews, so I'm not looking forward to reading it, but I think it could be like a fun, cliche, cringe time, and I do love that sometimes. So I guess we'll see. Lotus by Jennifer Hartman. This is not the sequel to the first book, which is Still Beating, but it is in the same universe, but it's not technically a series. But I read the first book. I gave it a 3.5, but there were such heavy subjects in that book, so I am now scared to pick up this one, but I'm going to. I just don't know when. The Way I Used to Be by Ember Smith. This is, again, supposed to be a really, really heartbreaking story, but also it's supposed to be really good as well, and I just think it's gonna be a good time, but maybe read it another time when I'm in the right headspace. Meet Me at the Lake by Carly Fortune. I haven't read Every Summer After, but I have heard that people enjoyed Every Summer After more than they did this one, and also Every Summer After is not the best book, but this one is even worse. Now I am apprehensive to pick this one up, and I feel like I need to wait until next summer. Do I want to read that during the fall or the winter? No, probably not. So I'll probably wait until like 2025, summer 2025, until I will read this book. Funny You Should Ask by Alyssa Sussman. I have had this book on my TBR for way too long. I did start it recently, but I got like, I read the prologue, I think, or like the prologue in the first chapter, but then I stopped reading it, and I cannot recall anything about that first chapter that I read. The Summer of Broken Rules by K.L. Walther. Again, need to wait until next summer to read this book because it's apparently very summer coded, obviously, because it's the Summer of Broken Rules, but summer coded. City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is the first book in the Mortal Instruments, first book in the Shadowhunters universe. I already know some things, some plot lines that's gonna happen, and that kind of scares me. Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins. I recently read The Hunger Games in a video. I love that book. I was so surprised. I gave that a 4.5. I absolutely adored that book. I am so excited to continue the series, so I bought Catching Fire. I already owned Mockingjay, but this is like a different cover, so I think I might get rid of this one and buy the other one. The Battle of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins as well. This is about President Snow, okay? This is also one that has been on my TBR for too long for how popular it is. The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. I did read The Dead Romantics. I really loved it. I gave it 4 stars, but I still haven't picked up this one, and I don't know why. I just really hope this is gonna be a 5-star, and because I have such high expectations for it, I am putting off reading it because I don't want to be disappointed. The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. This is a really interesting story. It's like magical realism, just as The 7-Year Slip is. But in this case, this woman, she goes into the afterlife. She gets a second chance at life and needs to find her one true love on Earth. And if she doesn't do that in this amount of time, she gets sent back to the afterlife. Okay, 2 books. The Graham Effect by Elle Kennedy and The Dixon Rule, also by Elle Kennedy. So the Charlie Method, the cover has recently been revealed, and I love that cover. When that will release, I will buy that as well. But I don't know, I just want to collect these books for some reason. Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan. I don't know what this book is about. I do know that it's a second chance romance, and I also know that second chance romances don't always hit for me. But I've heard people say that don't enjoy second chance romances, that this one was a really good one. So I am intrigued, and I just think that I'm gonna like it as well. Savor It by Tara Dewitt. The Favor by Suzanne Wright. I heard Larry from Larry Reads, Larissa, talk about this book very positively, and I've heard no other person talking about this book, but she rated it very highly, probably like a 4.75, I think, and it made me want to buy this book, and I found it for really cheap on Vinted, so I bought it, and I am really excited for this, but I've also owned it for a while as well. Kiss Her Once for Me. This is a Christmas novel, and I just love that. It's also sapphic, so basically, this woman, she fake dates this guy, and the guy's sister is the one she has a romance with. Unsteady by Peyton Corrine. This is like a romance between a figure skater and an ice hockey player. Love that. Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. This is the only Elsie Silver book I still need to read, and then I finished her backlist. Once again, The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. Two Wrongs Make a Right by Chloe Elise. I skim read, I think, the first book in another Chloe Elise series, and I enjoyed that, but I never ever committed to reading the full thing. But I am committing to reading this one. The Fifth Wave and The Infinite Sea, both by Rick Yancey, I think. Both by Riley Sager. We have The Only One Left and The House Across the Lake. I've heard a lot of people say that they enjoyed Survive the Night more than they did The House Across the Lake, and I really didn't enjoy the Survive the Night. I kind of hated that book. I thought it was really ridiculous, but not in a good way. But I've heard a lot of positive things about The Only One Left, and apparently it's not as unhinged, crazy, ridiculous as the Survive the Night book was. The Last Place You Look by Kristen Lepionka. I bought this book at the thrift store, and I didn't know anything about it, and I still don't know anything about it. But I do think this is going to be an interesting read, and I do want to read more books that I got at the thrift store because I have this weird tendency where I buy books at the thrift store and never read them. Okay, we're moving on to the last stretch, people. Okay, The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. This is, again, a really popular book that I haven't read yet. I did read another Paula Hawkins, but two other Paula Hawkins books. But the first one that I read was Into the Water, and there was some eating disorder representation, and at the time, I was not into that. But I also read Slow Fire Burning, and I thought that was a really underwhelming read. But I've heard more positive things about this one. So, again, I am intrigued. These two books, I honestly don't know if I'll ever read these, but they are still on my physical TBR. And I do think I'm gonna read this because I've heard positive things about them, but I don't know. I read the first book and I didn't really love it. It's Reflected in You and Entwined with You by Sylvia Day. The first one is Bare to You. I enjoyed that, but it wasn't anything spectacular. And I started reading this one, which is the second book, and I was kind of disappointed because I started getting really irritated by this book, so I put it down again. So I am interested still, but I don't know if I'll ever pick these up again, but we'll see. Fallen by Lauren Kate. The last books. Twilight, because I haven't freaking read Twilight. I've watched the movies, really love those. I need to rewatch them. I need to get on reading these books because I've had them for a while, since February, because I found them at the thrift store, and I have heard about them a lot, obviously. Probably will make a reading vlog out of it if I do read these soon. That's a lot of books. That's a load of books. I don't even know what to say. I have too many books on my physical TBR, and I do know a lot of people have more books on their physical TBR, but this is still a whole fuckload. This is still too much. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, but that was the video. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more of me, subscribe and like this video, and I hope I'll see you next time. Bye bye!